it's just indicated that we still have a technical delay. And yeah, you're welcome to take your seats. We will start in a couple of minutes, in a very few moments. We have some drinks over there, so you can grab a drink before we start. And yeah, I very warmly welcome you to this EELISA Innovation Talk with our special guests. And I would like to give the word to our moderator for this evening, which is Judith Klein from Zollhof.
Hello, hello. Take your seats. I'm just waiting until everybody finds their seats. And in the meantime, I would like to say hello and welcome our online audience and also our audience here at Zollhof Tech Incubator in Nürnberg on the 10th EELISA Innovation Talk on female innovation. This is our topic for today. I'm very happy that you all joined us on this sunny day here in Nürnberg. My name is Judith Klein. I'm head of startups at Zollhof Tech Incubator, and I'm going to be your host tonight. EELISA Innovation Talk is an event series by the EELISA InnoCore, the research and innovation wing of EELISA. EELISA is one of the European universities selected by the European Commission with 10 alliance members in Europe, in Madrid, Paris, Zurich, Pisa, Erlangen, Nürnberg, Budapest, Bucharest, and Istanbul. For this EELISA Innovation Talk about female innovation, the EELISA at Friedrich-Alexander-Universität Erlangen-Nürnberg, the Siemens Research and Innovation Ecosystem Erlangen-Nürnberg, and the FAO Founders Café joined forces to organize this amazing talk today. What is female innovation, you might ask? And we know from research that diverse teams are way more innovative and they can solve complex problems much better than homogeneous groups. And there is a growing recognition of the importance of diversity in the realms of innovation and entrepreneurship. Today we are going to address gender diversity in this context and focus on the question why women are still underrepresented when it comes to STEM careers, startups, and venture capital. Many women have contributed greatly to the world of innovation. So it's timely and relevant to discuss what we can all do to promote more equity and thus capture the enhanced innovation potential of diverse teams. In this EELISA Innovation Talk, we will shed light to these questions with amazing innovators from different tech industries, and we will listen to their perspectives, and they will share their experiences with us, and they will also give you great advice for your future careers. To open the evening, please join me in welcoming Professor Dr. Joachim Honegger, the President of Friedrich-Alexander-Universität Erlangen-Nürnberg, on stage for his welcome statement.
Thank you so much for the kind invitation and the kind words. A warm welcome on behalf of the University Board of Friedrich-Alexander-Universität Erlangen-Nürnberg. You all know where we are. Here we are in the Zollhof. This is our high-tech incubator, the fastest growing high-tech incubator in Germany on more than 3,000 square feet. We grow new startup companies that are or that have their origin at our university, at here in Nürnberg and all the other places. So we are very open-minded to any startup ideas that come up and that support our region. Also with our industry partners, Zollhof is an exceptional place. Siemens, Schaeffler, Huck, Coburg, Nürnberger Versicherung, and many more. Adidas are supporting us, and it's a great place for innovation. And if we talk about innovation, we also have, of course, diversity in mind. Yeah? FAU stands for innovation, diversity, and everything that is linked to it, and we are moving knowledge. And if you look at the numbers, our students are mostly female. More than 50% of our students, and that are 20,000 people, are female. We even have disciplines where we have a majority of female students. Medicine, 66%. In law, yeah, more than 60%. But if you look into engineering, you will find out that we have less than 30% female students. And so it's also a mission for us, particularly in engineering, to convince people that it's a good idea to go into engineering. It's a good idea to be creative in the field of engineering and to grow brilliant minds also in this environment, to reflect the diversity that we want to have in the various stages. In terms of supporting female innovation, we did a lot in the past. You all know that support of females at universities is something that we clearly have on focus, also with many decisions we have in the university board. So once a while, even the president is required to take a list of potential professorship candidates, and then we decide for the woman on the list, just to strengthen also women in the field and to make sure that we also have the role models in the lecture hall. Of course, if we talk about setting seed points for startup companies, for creativity and for good ideas for future businesses, we also are very careful in selecting the people, and diversity is also something that we have in mind, and that means female students, international students, but also Franconian boys we are considering to be of a high value for this type of approach. So I'm very happy that we have now the initiative by EELISA, the European University Alliance that we are in with FAU. I want to emphasize that EELISA is for us a very, very important tool in terms of becoming more international, in terms of becoming more innovative, and in terms of maintaining our innovation power at FAU. I hope that we will have a cool meeting today, that we will see brilliant talks and also learn about female innovation, looking at a few role models. Frau Schellinger, I'm very happy to have you here as an FAU alumnus. And let's keep things rolling. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this amazing talk. I think we heard the most important ingredients, how to make an ecosystem more diverse. But let's see now how we will learn some more important details about this topic from our great panelists and speakers today. And let me just switch to the slide, because I would like to introduce to you our great speakers for today. And the first person I would like to introduce is Lisa Grado, who is an active serial entrepreneur, a business angel, and she is also engaged in the German startup politics. In her primary position, Lisa is the founder and CEO of FIDES, a governance software that enables companies to digitize and automatize their corporate governance processes. She's actively investing in innovative startups as well through her company, Lioncorn Capital. Previously, she was building another startup, Usercentrics, the leading privacy content management platform. On an honorary basis, Lisa is also active in different organizations. She is a deputy president of the German Startup Association, and she is a member of the advisory board of the Young Digital Economy, as well as a senator at ACATEC, the German Academy of Science and Engineering. A great applause to Lisa. Our next panelist today is Laura Engerhardt. Laura is Head of Technology and Innovation Strategy at Siemens Technology and co-founder of Pure Edge, a coaching company. In her leadership role at Siemens, she plays a vital role in shaping the future of her company by driving foresight and innovation ecosystems to collaboratively tackle the greatest issues of our world, digital transformation and sustainability topics. Being a mechanical engineer by education and having worked all over the world, from Israel to India, from Thailand to US, she has developed a global perspective in a male-dominated environment. In addition to her leadership role, Laura has taught more than 2,500 changemakers, entrepreneurs, and social entrepreneurs. Her commitment to enabling others to tackle our most pressing issues led her to co-found her coaching company, Pure Edge, and we are very happy to have you here today with us. Last but not least, Dr. Isabel Schellinger, who is a medical doctor and founded Angel Solution together with Dr. Uwe Ratz. The company develops innovative devices for abdominal aortic aneurysms, a pathological dilation of the largest vessel in the human body that can lead to deadly rupture. Dr. Schellinger studied medicine at FAU, where she also received her doctoral degree. Her research has brought her to prestigious institutions around the world, such as Stanford University. She earned respective merits in science, in medicine, in business. She's a member of the Young Academy at the German Academy of Sciences, the Berlin-Brandenburg Academy of Economy, and she is also awarded from the German Society of Angiology, and she's also made it to the Forbes 30 under 30 list. Congratulations on those merits to you. As a founder and CEO of venture capital-backed medical device startup, she has first-hand experience and knowledge about the opportunities and challenges of women in tech. Great that you are here today. So let me very briefly tell you about our agenda for today. We are going to hear 3 talks from our speakers today. Each of the talks will take 10 minutes, and afterwards we will have a panel discussion for 30 minutes, and we will still have time for your questions online and also on site. So pay attention and make some notes, because the last 20 minutes will be about your questions. And in this regard, I would like to already call Lisa on stage so that you can start with your speech.
Thank you. Breaking barriers, my favorite topic. And I would like to start this talk with you. You have to get interactive now, not too much. I know the audience doesn't like that too much. So I would like to ask you to think of 3 companies, whatever company comes to mind, and it has to be founded by a woman. So I initially had 10 companies on the slide, but then I thought, okay, that was actually pretty hard. But even coming up with 3 companies that were founded by women on the spot, I'm honest, was also hard for me. So what did I do? And I wanted to think of, you know, big corporates, big companies. Like, I know many female founders, but what about the big companies that we interact with daily? So I asked ChatGPT, and the answer was pretty, I don't know, disappointing. It gave me 4 companies, which were all founded by men, but they're mentioning the wives. They helped, the wives helped. So this is the answer when you ask ChatGPT which German big corporate was founded by a woman. I was very unsatisfied with those findings, so I started Googling, not only for the German companies, because that would be actually very little, but these companies were all at least co-founded by a woman. And I'm sure maybe you're surprised by some of the names. I certainly was. And the fact that we are surprised is also very sad and unsatisfying, because those are literally all the companies that I found that are big. Then I thought, well, okay, Chanel, Estée Lauder, that's pretty obvious that those were founded by women. But what about these companies? These were founded by men. And what really surprised me was, for example, OB was founded by 2 guys, and they thought they have to come up with a solution for that. And they went to a clinic and they asked the male gyno there, can you help us design it? And only the gyno said, guys, you need a woman to design this, like, why are you asking me? And only then they hired a woman to design that. So my point is that women are innovative, but sometimes, we lack the step to become entrepreneurs, to become founders, to let our creativity, to give it space and to actually make it happen. So I want to start by my personal journey a bit to tell you who I am. That was at age 18. I had just graduated high school, and I had an idea. I wanted to become Chancellor of Germany, and that's why I was active in youth politics. And we got these very ugly shirts for campaigning. And at 18, I was like, not gonna wear this. So I designed my own shirts. And at some point, people asked me, oh, where did you get this? Can we buy this somewhere? And at that point, I just decided, well, you can buy it from me. So I borrowed 2K from my mother and then went to the local printing shop and just printed shirts with like cool slogans for political statements. And that took off for a bit during the campaigning period. And I didn't know the word startup, I didn't know the word founder or entrepreneur. That was 2013 when it all was just getting started with the whole startup vibe. But in that moment I knew I want to be an entrepreneur because of course at some point somebody told me, did you found something? And that's when I learned about the word. And I still went on to study law in Munich because I still thought, well, that's the best basis to go into politics at some point. But I was very quickly annoyed by youth politics already and decided that there's a better way of making impact, which is being an entrepreneur. Like you can actually take things in your hands and change the future right here, right now. You don't have to win allies or fight whatever politics brings with it. So fast forward, I now founded my second company, or third if you want to take the first one into account, and are living my dream, I have to say. I founded this company now in the corporate governance space, so still in the law area, but I don't have to do actual legal work, which I'm very happy about, because if you're an entrepreneur, it's a bit hard to be that structured if your mind is exploding from ideas. And that's my personal journey. I also started angel investing after the exit of my first company, and that gave me a bit of the other perspective. And then on an honorary basis, I still love politics, but I'm doing my way of politics now. So I'm active in the German Startup Association, and basically we are lobbying for startups. We're talking to politicians and advising them on what they could change, what are the challenges for us. And I have to say, like 5 or 6 years ago, nobody was really listening. And now, if you look in any campaigning program, startups is a huge topic, and female founders is a huge topic. So now we are really where we need to be in terms of the attention and acknowledging the importance of startups on a political level. So what the Startup Association is also doing is the so-called Female Founders Monitor. And we release that yearly, and we do a survey among more than 2,000 founders, and we ask them about their story, about their challenges, what happened on their way to becoming a founder, and I brought some results of that with me. So that actually goes in the direction what you just already mentioned. So we start by, of course, 50-50, graduating high school, and we are still, close to 50-50, but already not anymore with what are people studying. So, of course, you can study art, but becoming a founder, coming from art, is a bit of a stretch, more than it would be, of course, if you study business or engineering. So that's where the first gap is starting. And then we have the next gap. 20% of founders are female, while 80% are men. So that's a pretty big gap, but good news, that gap is closing. So over the last 5 years, that number increased from 15% to 20%. So we're on a good way there already. The trend is positive. But then, as women, we found a company, but then we don't get any money and the company dies. So those are the last two columns, and that's the reason why if we think now of big German startups, we mostly think of companies founded by male founders because they got all the investments and that's why they became big. And the question is, why is that? So we have to maybe also differentiate between mixed teams and all-female teams. I don't think it makes sense to lobby for just female teams. It's totally perfect if it's a mixed team. So looking at those numbers, let's say 12% of the whole VC volume goes to teams where there's at least one female founder in. That's a big gap. And that, maybe going back, we have to look like, why is that? So the fields that founders are studying are very diverse, of course. You can basically become a founder with anything. That's one of my personal principles, like you just need common sense. You don't need a degree or anything. But still, at least women maybe don't think that they can become a founder if they didn't study business or so. That's another problem I will come back later to. But you can see here the percentages, but what are female founders, or what have they studied, what have male founders studied. The areas already show a first direction of why maybe some of the startups we know and others founded by females we don't know so much. There are 6 key findings in the Female Founders Monitor, and you can also look it up on our website. But one is what I already mentioned. There's a positive trend, so we just have to keep doing at least what we're doing and add a bit more, then we'll get somewhere. We don't have to reach 50-50, I would say, but we have to get close to that. We have to work to that. And of course, regarding the gender gap in capital, the problem with that is probably the similarity bias. Most of the investors in VC are men. There are some venture funds that don't have any female analysts, associates, or partners. And of course, you invest in what you know and what you think is good in some regard. And VC has recognized that, and there are many initiatives now by VCs to onboard more female investors, and also to emphasize if a pitch deck of a woman is coming in, that there's special attention to it. So I think over the last 2 years, the scene woke up, and there's hope that at least the similarity bias might not be the biggest problem going forward. But another problem, and that is deeply engraved in the whole system, and I don't know how to change it. I just hope that the times we are now going in is changing it, is purpose. Why is that a problem? Because in a capitalist world, in a capitalist era that we're coming from, you don't invest in purpose, you invest in a good business model. And unfortunately, we are coming from times where a good business model was worth more than any of the purpose that could be achieved. I don't know how you feel, but I feel times are changing at least a bit, that impact-driven businesses are becoming also attractive because there's also a lot of money to be made in climate and everything. So we might be on a good way there, but that is definitely one finding why so much VC dollars went into male founded companies. And we will see how that will change. Work-life balance or imbalance, we can all imagine. I don't have children yet, but I actually don't want to imagine how it will be if I have children while still in that lifestyle of being a founder. Of course, you can make everything work, but it's still extra hard for women to get everything under one roof. And then one advice that I got, for example, from my investors is that the company should pay the nanny and that I should get 2 full-time nannies so that I have 40-40 shifts so that I can still work 80 hours. So I'm not sure if that is like the balance that I should achieve for. But of course, my investors are also thinking like, what is happening with her performance? So that's all very pressuring. Already thinking about that. And that's definitely a societal problem that we have, where we have to change all our attitude and our biases probably towards that, but also being realistic of what one can do. And initiatives is the last finding. So especially women really love networking and clinging actually from their nature, but oftentimes we don't feel welcome at some of the networking events that there are because it's completely male dominated. Or speaking out of my own experience, sometimes if you're networking, you're not viewed as a business partner or as a networking partner, but as a woman first. So you're not sure where this is going, where the talk is going. So I think this is a finding also that we need, or that's the reason why there are more female initiatives, because there we can be amongst us and we don't have to be afraid of asking dumb questions or being self-confident. And going a bit more into the purpose and how our female founders thinking. So one question in the monitor was, what's important for you? Like, what's your strategy? And 67% of the founders only said it's rapid growth, while 81% of male founders said for them rapid growth is very important. Profitability was more important to women, probably because they already have in mind they have to build a long-term business, they cannot depend so much on investors, less risk eventually. And then a positive social or environmental impact is important to almost 90% of the female founders, while it's only important to 74% of the male founders. So I think that gives you a good image of what are the different natures of male founders and female founders. And I already said that, but going from a hyper-capitalist world into a more impact-driven world, I think female founders are pretty well set up. And they will run the future, so to say, because they have the right compass if it comes to what is important for the planet, for the economy in a whole. And when I'm saying that, I'm always speaking of course, mixed teams. I think it's enough if you put a woman in a male founders team to steer the company maybe in the right direction. Another thing that I also already mentioned, women are most of the time founding in areas that are more B2C. And historically, many of the venture funds that are out there, and especially now that have been created over the last years, they have a total B2B focus. And that's also why it's very hard for female founders to fundraise, because they're in the wrong areas, so to say, from a venture perspective. But still, if you look at the areas like nutrition, food, medicine, education, that's what we need. So I also think that we need a change there from the investment perspective, where we break up this B2B hype and look more into the companies that would actually impact our society more. What can universities do? That was also part of the monitor. One is, of course, mentorship. There need to be lectures about entrepreneurship. I actually attended in my first and second semester a business plan seminar, even though I was studying law, so it's totally possible to create these courses that go across faculties that can already start bringing people together from the first or second semester on, so the seed grows over the time that there's the possibility of actually founding a company. Funding, as far as possible. In the beginning, an office is already enough. So this initiative right here is, I think, very amazing. I would have definitely used it, and just being here, taking in the energy, seeing other people doing it. I think that's what universities can offer. And then, of course, networking, also events like these. For a closing note, I just wanted to use this opportunity in case there's anyone in the audience thinking about founding a company. These are some of my principles that might seem a bit unusual, but that have built over the years. One is courage, feel the fear and do it anyway. I dropped out of law school half a year before my first state exam because I had the idea for the previous company. And of course I was also afraid, like, am I going to forget everything? If it fails, then I have to start all over again. And in the end, you have to look at the fear, feel it, but then do it anyway. And I think that's always important also in the daily life of an entrepreneur. Trust, I'm very spiritual. I'm becoming more spiritual by the day because so much of the luck of the company is, I don't know, of course coming from hard work, but it's also being at the right place, and somehow I have the feeling the universe is guiding you. And then there's of course all in. You have to do it wholeheartedly and just give this the opportunity and think big and think this is really, your company and you're building it. And all of the, below principles you've probably heard a ton before, but think big is really, really important if you want to get investors' money. They are already asking you, if you have like 2 customers, what is your IPO story? And then you have to come up with an IPO story. And that's how you, at least have to play the game, and that also goes into going in all in. Everybody can build something big if you already aim for the bigger goal. Okay, sorry. I forgot the last slide then to include here, but I had one closing call to action for all of you, which is think of a female founder, approach them, ask them what are you struggling with, and then make one intro that will help them, and then make this a habit. So 1 intro per month for another female entrepreneur should definitely be doable, and that's where we can all start and help each other to create many more female big founders. Thank you.
Now it's your turn, Laura, so the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Lisa, for your inspiring talk. I love those principles, and I would say most of them I take by heart as well. So, next one, that's me. Celebrating female innovation. I chose this title because I think we really need to celebrate. So we have come a long way, and we can still, I don't want to say complain, but we can stick at some point. But we are here and we can just join the party. And so my short talk will be a plaidoyer of joining the party, celebrating ourselves and each and every person among us, and having fun, and all while coming up with innovation that indeed is impact-driven, meaning it has a business model and also caters to sustainability. I want to start with a lake. a lake that is pretty close to us. Not too close, but pretty close. This is Lake Constance, and it has some special features. It has some special features because it is, the weight it caters is about 55 gigatons. And you might have heard a similar number, which is 50 gigatons. And this 50 gigatons is the global greenhouse gas emissions that we emit into our atmosphere each and every year. So each and every year, we emit equivalent weight of the water of Lake Constance into the atmosphere. That's huge. And if you look at the sectors that actually contribute to this, it's about 30% from industry, it's about 16% from transport, of course road with the main contributor, 18% from buildings, 18% from agriculture, and then 20% of others like wastewater. Now, if you look at the company I'm working for, we have an impact at about 3/4 of those sectors that are responsible for the greenhouse gas emissions. And this is the reason why I consciously chose to work for that company and be at an integral part of defining where our future can belong to. And this is the first message I really want to cater. Choose your environment, choose your ecosystem. It can be a startup, ecosystem, it can be a large company, it can be a university, but what is the impact you are aiming for? Actually, Siemens is recognized as one of the most innovative companies. That's the second reason why I like to work there. And also I missed one thing, that the startup rankings are pretty high, which we just celebrated some weeks ago. So Glassdoor ranked us at the #1 company for startup-friendly environment. But I want to start with my personal view on it. So when I was about 5, I wanted to become a deep-sea diver. And I painted pictures of those deep seas and all the creatures I thought that I would see in those ecosystems and just explore how nature could be. Then I thought that's pretty, I don't know, you're gonna be really alone deep underwater and it might be dark. So I thought the universe might be better, so then you have an overview. So when I was 12, I wanted to become an astronaut. And exploring Mars, becoming the first female or the first person ever to step on Mars. And then at 18, I thought, no, that's going to be very alone as well. Actually, I just want to travel the world, and I like technical stuff, so I studied mechanical engineering. So I was among those less than 20% female. And probably I did what most of my female students, co-students did, or we just adopted. So it doesn't matter whether you're male or female or anybody, you just adapt to the situation. So you learn science, you learn all those mechanical engineering things, and that's it. That's the rest of the world. And actually, I did travel quite a bit. So I traveled to Thailand and South America and China and everywhere. And at each and every step I traveled, I adapted to it. So I learned a lot about different cultures. But somehow I took my own diversity at the back. And it was much, much, much later that I actually realized that it is an asset to be a bit different, that it is an asset to be a bit in the minority. And why am I saying this? So fast forward some years, I worked for the CTO in the CTO office, and we were looking at what are actual key success factors for large innovation projects, all kinds of innovation projects. And guess what we found out? So what is the success factor number one for innovation? Even before having a problem worth solving, and a customer paying for it, of course, and a nice technology and a good business model and so on and so forth, it's people. And to be precise, it's not only people, but it's people with diverse skill sets, with diverse perspectives, coming together and co-create. So I thought, well, then let's just build up an environment where people can come together with their expertise and co-create. So that actually was about 7 years ago, the starting point of one of the open innovation initiatives that we have at Siemens, and we founded we call it Entrepreneurs Bootcamp. Basically, it's a space where we invite purpose, and here we hear it again, purpose-driven change makers from around the world to come together and then align themselves with what does actually matter to yourself, then form teams, entrepreneurial teams, until the incubation phase. And in this way, we not only empower the people and not only drive forward projects, but we also change the culture bit by bit by bit by bit. And I'm using this example with a lot of pride, because this morning I'm just coming from cohort number 11, so you see cohort number 10 here. We started it, we call it Tech for Sustainability Bootcamp. So we started it with 3 distinct challenges: circularity, controlled environment agriculture, and the last one is autonomous grids. Yes. So right this morning, and actually they're still there, about 60 people from around the world, from 20 nations, are coming together, celebrating their own diversity. And I started with saying this is going to be a plaidoyer. So what I really want to say to each and every female innovator now in this room, you are important, because we can't shape the future by our own. We can't tackle all the problems that we see alone. So please show up, and please don't do the same mistake as I did, just adapting, but value your asset. Value your asset. And that's it.
Thank you very much for these inspiring words. And last but not least, please, Isabel, take the stage. And we are looking forward to your presentation.
Where do I have to put this? Perfect. Hi, everybody. So I'm actually very honored to be on this panel with you two. I loved both talks. So good evening. My name is Isabel, and I was actually asked to share over the next 10 minutes with you my very personal story to entrepreneurship. And obviously, I cannot mention every person and every circumstance that led to that journey, but I hope you will like it anyway. So let me start with some very personal information. I was actually born in the city of today's event, Nuremberg. I went on to study medicine, one of the over 60% medicine at the University of Erlangen-Nürnberg, where I also conducted my doctoral research in the context of kidney disease and vascular growth. What you can see on this slide here is actually how a vessel looks under the microscope. And when I started to look for a laboratory where I could conduct my research, I actually interviewed with several laboratories. And I got very good advice from a mentor. He told me, don't choose your lab simply based on the topic that you're going to do research on, because you won't understand it in the first place when you start out anyway. But look into the human factor. look how you feel spending most of your time over the next several years with those people in the laboratory. And I thought that was actually very smart. So I based the decision where to do my doctoral research on the human interaction I had during these interviews. And this is how it came that I joined Carl Higges's lab in Erlangen, and where I found many new mentors, people who taught me, people who supported me, people who became important sparring partners. And I think those relationships were actually very crucial in another very important step in my career, going to California to deepen my research knowledge. And I think you know that California has beautiful landscapes, big cities, technology companies, but even more importantly, leading universities. So I went on to study and do research at Stanford University. But before that, I actually had to do another interview with a professor online 10 years ago. That was not common. My English was less than impressive, and I just hoped that he would take me on. And he was very friendly. He asked me some questions, and after that meeting, he said I would be accepted. And I was so over the moon. And then he told me that I should spend the first months settling into the lab and not thinking about producing any meaningful results. It wasn't until a couple of years later that I asked Phil Zhao how he decided to take me on and actually also give me a several months long grace period. And he shared two of his main principles with me. He said, first of all, always support young people. And second, life is a marathon, not a sprint. I want to share some more pictures of Stanford with you. That's the medical school under the palm trees. This is one of the many impressive research buildings, Clark Center. And now I want to tell you about the research I did in that laboratory. So the laboratory I worked on a disease called abdominal aortic aneurysm, and we heard of it before. It's a pathological dilation of the biggest blood vessel of the human body. This disease is always considered a ticking time bomb. Why? Because it's at imminent risk of fatal rupture. It's a progressive disease that is mostly detected in its early stages. Unfortunately, there is no way to stopping it at this early stage. My co-founder, Dr. Uwe Raas, who is also here today to chat later on when we're at dinner, we actually discovered a novel pathway mechanism driving aneurysm progression. We found that with every heartbeat, pulse waves travel along the aorta, hitting the vulnerable aneurysm and thereby ultimately driving aneurysm progression. When we were ready to publish these findings, the Technology Transfer Office at Stanford approached us and told us to patent that mechanism. An idea that had never crossed our minds as German researchers. We just wanted to publish and share our science with the scientific community and the medical community. Absolute the opposite of patenting. Nevertheless, we listened to them, and I think at that point we couldn't imagine how that would change our life courses. So after the patent was filed, we actually published and went back to Germany to continue our work in research and clinics at the University Hospital in Göttingen. We thought that we would stay in medicine forever. We thought that we would find somebody, maybe a big company, to pursue our idea and bring it to the patient. That was very naive. After a while, we realized that if we wouldn't pursue that idea, nobody would. After all, it was just an idea based on some research. So we started to talk to a countless number of people. And one of them in Tel Aviv at ICI conference was Billy Cohn, a famous cardiothoracic surgeon and inventor. He gave a presentation there, very lively, very motivating, very exciting. And I couldn't help myself but approaching after his talk and drag Uwe along with me. He told us that he just started his role as the executive director of the Center for Device Innovation in Houston, Texas. And as the Southerners are, he was very friendly and invited us to come to Houston. I wasn't sure if he meant it, but we took him by his word. So the next time we got the chance to visit the US, we flew to Houston after numerous calls with Billy's secretary. I think at some point she was so annoyed by us relentless Germans that she just gave up and gave us an appointment. And this is for you, so this is Houston. This is Houston. And what you see in the front is the Texas Medical Center, TMC, the largest medical facility in the world. So we visited Billy there, and he encouraged us to join the TMC Innovation Accelerator. We listened to him, applied, and the jury approved, and it was there that we found peers and knowledge for the road ahead. Shortly after that, we gathered another very important piece of the puzzle. 3 investors believed in us and our idea, and that was when Angelution actually became operational, a company dedicating all its work to implementing the first device to stop aneurysm growth in its tracks. We were honored by several business, medical, and IP awards, but all that could have not been possible with the right team. And all of Angelution's management team is here today to chat with all of you female innovators after these talks and panel discussion. So go reach out to Uwe, Marius, and myself and talk to us. And I think we come a long way, but if you want to become an innovator in the medical sector and don't know how to do it, reach out to long-standing programs or not so long-standing programs. One of them is the Stanford Biodesign program, and learn about innovation in the medical field. Because the Americans, unlike ourselves, don't believe that innovation is something for single-minded geniuses. They think it's a skill that you can acquire, and I love that thought. Because bringing something, some idea from the laboratory to the patient is very tedious. The valley of death in medicine is plastered with regulatory and reimbursement processes because obviously medicine is highly regulated, and for good reason, to protect the patient. But for a medical startup, this can be crippling, and even the end of the startup, because as we heard from Lisa, it takes a lot of money to bring something to the market. And additionally, in medicine, everything is very slow and conservative. Convincing your customer, most of the times, doesn't mean convincing the patient, but doctors, and that's very difficult. So if I would to share some insights, I can only say these 3 things. Actively look for opportunities, that's when the universe hits you. Find people to support you, and don't be afraid to establish your own path. And when you then go down the very, very, very rewarding road to being an entrepreneur, keep one thing in mind. Timing, perseverance, and 10 years of trying will eventually make you look like an overnight success. Thank you.
Thank you for this amazing presentation as well. I'm just clicking on the microphone because now we are going to start our panel discussion. And if you want, take some water after your hard work today. And I would like to already start with my first question, and here is the microphone for you because we need to share the microphone, the resource for today. And with that, I would like to address maybe 2 aspects in 2 of your presentations. Firstly, you mentioned diversity is one of the most important factors to make innovation happen. And you also mentioned the importance of initiatives. Now, here at Zollhof, we are building a startup ecosystem. And the question, how can we make an ecosystem inclusive, long-term, sustainable, is a question we deal with on an everyday basis. So I would like to get your perspective on topics like female-only programs, for example. How about approaches like introducing female quotas? I think these are great initiatives, but they always come with a downside. So I'm always hesitant, from my experience, to introduce silos, if you want, because that's the downside of having female-only initiatives. But of course, they also give us great chance to invite more female innovators to the ecosystem. So maybe from your experience, what do you think? What are initiatives? What are approaches that help us make an ecosystem more inclusive in a sustainable way?
I would like to answer on the last question. So is it a female silo, or is it both, well, all genders? And I think it depends. So I have made the experience in both ways, and I would say a purely female ecosystem is really worthwhile and attractive to sharing the common problems. Actually, to raising awareness, there are common problems, and there are common experiences that we all do, which we were not aware of beforehand. So I said before, for me it took a long while to become aware of that female leadership skills are the one that are really needed in this world, besides male one. But in this process of becoming aware, I needed other females to somehow check on what is it. So it's a bit of a reference. And then ultimately, I think it should be the goal that that we share it all together. I mean, this is the ideal world, and so not bringing up another silo, but using the female ecosystem to learn, and then sharing it all together. Want to add?
I would actually absolutely agree, and I think this is where you have like kind of these processes where you put together a lot of maybe female people who are interested in a certain topic, give them the, you know, kind of encouragement and motivation to, you know, come forward with their ideas, and then put them into these mixed situations where they can be very reassured of themselves and speak out for themselves because they know that somebody has their back, I think, right?
I think there was a study that girls have better grades in math if they're in female-only classes, and I don't know what it is, but for some reason we can feel freer when we're just among ourselves. So I also have to say it's a totally different experience to have a female co-founder. She's also here. And we love our third male co-founder, but it's still like, it's a bit different. It's like we can really talk about things that we cannot talk about with him. And so I think I also wouldn't call it silos, but more of, development spaces.
Or safe spaces, so to say. If you think back at the beginning of your careers, because you all made great experiences, international experiences in the tech environment, and we saw this in your statistics, that the gap starts very early, right? When you graduate from high school at the age of 18 is the big first question, what am I going to study if you wish to study? And this was intriguing for me because we talk a lot about the role of universities, but what happens before? And what happens with people who decide not to go to university? What would be your take on the early 18, 17-year-old selves? What skills do you need? What things you need to actually decide to branch out?
I get that question a lot, like why did you always know that path, or why did you never hesitate to do something like that? And I think I don't come from an entrepreneurial family at all, so that's not where that comes from. But from a mother who always encouraged me. Like, I always knew I could become anything I want, and she was very much telling me that you can be anything, and bringing out the Leo in me. And I think one problem is that nobody in school teaches you that you can actually become an entrepreneur. Like, all the options that are out there are, you can become a doctor, you can study this or make an Ausbildung there, but nobody tells you that you can become an entrepreneur. Like, this is literally not a job option presented to you during 13 years or 12 years of high school. And I think that's the first thing that has to change, that it becomes part of programs in high schools.
I also would say you need a bit of a curiosity. I mean, dare to be different and dare to learn something. And so actually I took back in it just took me a long while to remember those times, to be honest. But back in high school, I chose mathematics and physics and French as my main courses, and part of it was because I wanted to do something which I thought would be more challenging than doing arts, which I loved as well. So yeah, it just takes a bit of go over the edge, explore. The world is open. Actually, I mean, today, yes, there are some barriers, and I deeply respect the figures and experiences as well. But the world is open, so take your share.
I agree with all that has been said so far. Maybe because today is also kind of an European event, I sometimes feel it's also about geographics. I grew up in Bavaria, and then moved to Eastern Germany, which for some people in Europe might not make any difference. But I can tell you from experience, it's a huge difference. And I think what Lisa and Laura already said is, in some parts of the world, you have more role models than in other parts. And we cannot expect teachers to do all the work, but it's a societal effort to get the role models to boys and girls that they can be everything they want. And I think this is strongly reflected in geographics when you look to the Scandinavians and so on.
Maybe one topic I would like to still zoom on from the statistics that we saw is one barrier, which is about the compatibility of career and family. I think this is a barrier that women feel the most or the strongest, and I love the advice from your investors. Whether that's realistic, that's a different question. So maybe if you can share your experience, and whoever wants to take the question, on finding this compatibility. How did you navigate that, or how do you navigate this this great challenge, and what advice can you give to others how to navigate this?
Okay, that's going to be a long answer. So I have two little kids. One is 2 and one is 5. Actually, my perception changed a lot with becoming pregnant the first time. I always thought that's nothing we need to care about. But suddenly, somehow for women, your private life becomes public, if you want to or not. So you need to somehow share it, you need to find your way in navigating around it. Also, when I then had my first child, for me, it felt like there's a societal box. So there's a drawer, and then they take out the stamp, and then they put it on my forehead, and now I'm gonna be a mom, or a working mom, or a bad mom, or whatever. Whatever I would do, it would be somehow wrong. And just because I became a mom, so not just because I'm doing my things. And for my husband, it was different. It was the other way around. So he was becoming a proud dad, and the world was in pink, and everything was nice. So, and this is when I first realized something is odd. So it affects me, even though I don't want to be affected by it. So then the second thing that I realized is, right before that, I did a lot of research, but also tried out a lot of experiments in terms of innovation leadership. So what kind of skills do we need when we really want to drive innovation? And this is a lot about not only diversity, which we touched upon, but also what kind of ingredients do you put in your innovation project? What is the fertile ground you are building? Because the end result you don't know yet in the beginning. And then by having my first child, I realized this is exactly the same, but much more intense. So 24/7 VUCA training, all the time. And then I realized something is odd, because I'm really on a leadership training now, 24/7 with my little girl. But those leadership skills we need to promote much more. And actually, those are the future skills you can also read in the World Economic Forum, what we need in the future. And then the third part is, how do you then navigate in your actual daily life when the daily struggles come, right? So what part of the time do you address for your work? What is it for your kids? And I think here we have come a long way on having much more flexible work structures. So I am on a full-time contract, but I navigate around it because I block my time for this is dedicated to my children, and then sometimes I just work in the evening. But this is how I like it in my flexibility. And it's not always easy. It's a lot of communicating to each and every stakeholder, including your husband. But in the end, it's about knowing what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. And this is where the fourth part comes into place, knowing about your, I call it, very own inner genius. So what is it where you really do make an impact? What part of your CEO position, where do you have a real impact? And what parts is it that somebody else can do any better? This is what you're never going to do, because it's not your impact, and it loses time of whatever you have. So yes, so this is my long answer to this.
Thank you very much. And my last question, because I would like to give you the opportunity as well to ask questions. You are great role models, all of you. And we heard about the importance of role models. Do you have any role models? And if yes, who and why?
Actually, my role model is Elon Musk, and I never had a problem with having male role models. So I think it's totally fair to also identify with male role models. And then maybe Angela Merkel.
I again have to admit some of my role models are present here today, and I think it's really good to, besides finding role models that are, very ambitious to achieve, I would say, it was always very helpful for me to see professional women in my daily work who were, where I could actually relate to that what they are doing, this is something I maybe can do too. And I had so many along the way, starting with my mother and other professional women. And I think it cannot be underestimated that it's very encouraging to see that some people make it that because it doesn't look so unachievable then. And yeah.
So I wouldn't say I have one single role model, but I pick and learn from a lot of people, many of them male as well. So just doing things different and standing up for their needs and trying to get innovation in a place in just a bit of a different way, and so I just pick and choose.
Great. Thank you very much from my side. And now it's time for your questions. And for our online audience, you also have the chance to ask questions. So you can go to slido.com and you can type in the event code, which is #ELISA. and we will monitor your questions, and we will also pose your questions to the panel. And with this, I would like to open the floor for your questions.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lorena. So we mentioned that there's a big, disparity when it comes to the fields that we go into after high school that could lead us to going into this, more innovative work, being an entrepreneur. And my question is, do we have either regionally, or here, generally in Germany, anything in place to start the conversation in high school already? Is there any, activities, events to get, sort of high school kids going, whether it be Gymnasium, Realschule, it doesn't matter the level,
So now I'm answering for the Siemens perspective. So what we do have is Girls' Days. So we actually promote things that we do, and then we invite girls to just firsthand experience what we do and what they can become.
I actually also wanted to mention the Girls and Boys Days that they have in high school to kind of get girls and boys introduced to different topics that they might not be, might not choose in the first place. And I think you can sign up for several universities after you graduated to be a mentor to students in high school too, and just start a conversation with them, may it be in the innovation space or anything else. So I think there are programs, but maybe Lisa knows if there are special entrepreneurial programs. I'm not so sure about that one.
So I went to school in Baden-Württemberg. I'm not sure how it is in other states, but there in 10th grade was a one-year-long project of founding a company, accompanied by a teacher, but it depends if you have a motivated teacher who will allocate his free time to that project. And then there's an NGO called Startup Teens that is gaining more attention also on social media, and that really helps startup teens found startups. But to my knowledge, there's nothing in the Lehrpläne, programs of schools.
Next question.
So, hello. Thank you so much for the inspiring talk and for the insights. So I would have a twofold questions. So it was about teams, it was about leadership, and I think at some stage of your founding, either it is a mixed team, it is a female team, you come to a point where it is, might be that your team is growing, that you have different views, maybe two different visions of your startup. So my first part of the question would be, how do you approach conflicts in a team? Either way, it is mixed or single female. And the second one would be, you said you did some research about leadership competences, skills. Maybe you can share some insights there. So, but how do you handle conflicts?
I'm going to start with that question. So I hate conflicts. I cannot fight. I never fight with my boyfriend or with my parents, so it's very hard for me to go into conflict. Of course, in the business world and in a company, you cannot do that. Otherwise, the company will go out of business very soon. So you have to go into conflict, and you have to do it in a way that you can live with it without taking it personal. That's, I think, the first step. Not taking the conflict personal. It's natural that there is a conflict. As a founder team, we have a coach. Every time something comes up, we take him in and we discuss it as 4 people in the room. So we're all very professional and neutral, and that really helps. And then it also helps that Philippa and I are so close. Like, we know what's going on with all the employees we have, and we can mirror that. And so we always have the other one's perspective on well, was I too hard or am I expecting too much? So I think it really helps to be very transparent amongst your co-founders, and then also be very self-critic and always question, what did I do wrong, instead of what did the employee do wrong?
You can ask Uwe and Marius later if I gave a good representation on how we deal with conflict. I actually believe that it's not that formalized with us. Generally, I would say we are very agreeable people. And coming from science, we are used to tough discussions when it comes to the topic, to a certain topic. And their discussions can be very intense, but they never affect the personal relationship, in my opinion, when it comes to the team. So we can discuss the topic, but it's never going to be on a personal basis, because in how I feel about our team is that it's a very sensitive team, a very warm team, and we have a not so German culture in that people grasp it very quickly with singular words if a person is not that happy with a situation. So you don't have to be super explicit about things, and coming from a half Persian background, this is amazing for me, because it's very difficult to address it directly for me, and I can only give, thank you, Uwe, thank you, Marius, for that.
Yeah, so I think conflict is nothing bad at all, right? So it's something fruitful. So whenever there's friction, then something happens. So two aspects. So one is if the perspectives are just very, very different, then I think it's important to bring those to the table and talk about it. So for example, in my team, we had actually two teams merging to one a couple of months ago, and they couldn't be more different in their culture. So what we did, we started with job shadowing and just experiencing and learning and observing, and then reflecting on what part of it is that I find appealing and that I could introduce in my own work as well, and what part of it is just not useful for the task that I have, and I can just leave it that way. And so I think the most important part is to create, and you too said it as well, to create an atmosphere where it's psychologically safe to talk about it and to raise it, but then actually talk about it and yeah, maybe sometimes also fight over it. And the second question was about the research. So one part of it was reading just a lot about it in terms of what do we need to, what principles do we need to run successful innovation? And there's a pretty nice book, which is very simple, but I love it because there's a lot of wisdom in it. It's called Inner Innovation. If you haven't heard about it, you can read it in an evening, basically. But I found it a lot of wisdom. And then we did some studies like master's thesis and bachelor thesis. So in terms of what kind of traits and skills do you need as an entrepreneur? And then we can talk about it later on, maybe more in detail.
Is there any more question here? Yes, in the middle.
One moment.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Lucia is my name. I was thinking about your talks, and we heard a lot about walking your own path, which you might have to because you're in an area that's mainly male-dominated, unfortunately still. And looking back, or maybe also looking into the future, I would love for you to share like maybe one thing where you say, as a woman, I might have had to fight harder than maybe a man would have had to, but also something maybe comes to mind where you say, maybe I had it easier because I was a woman in interpersonal stuff, or maybe even obstacles that you could navigate easier because you were female, if something comes to mind.
I think medicine is a very good example for your question in general, because it's one of those subjects where you actually have more female graduates, but when it comes to the leadership position, they're almost entirely male. So going through a clinical education taught me a lot and wasn't always easy. But I think where you have a big advantage as a woman is you can address certain topics on a more personal basis and are not penalized for it. And while we talk a lot about business, business is not something neutral where objects interact with each other. Business means people interacting with each other. And I think sometimes it can be an advantage to be a woman. Also, men then share about their families and their personal thoughts because they feel that they can do that with a woman. So I think there is some advantage to it, obviously, too, and some disadvantage as well.
So when I reflect on it, what is typical female in me? I would go a little bit into your principles that you shared. And I would say that's a deeply rooted intuition. So part of my work is foresight, and of course we rely on data. But then there's just this kind of feeling of, I don't know what it is, energy feeling in terms of this is going to happen, and then at some point it's going to happen. And that's a kind of feeling of what is the energy in the room, where does somebody need something, where is kind of information needed, where do we lack data. It's just a different way. And I couldn't even name it, but I believe if I listen deep down in myself, this is something which I attribute to my female side and not to my male side. And then the difficult part, so being a female engineer in the room, and sometimes the only one, and I started out in manufacturing, so this is the hardcore male part anyways, you need to earn the respect. And I think it's changed a lot, not to the ultimate part, but in the past, I often needed to earn the respect. So going first, showing my expertise, and then when the field was sorted, everything is fine. But first, oftentimes, I really needed to do this beforehand.
Thank you very much. We have time for one last question. Yes? On this side.
I don't know who was first.
Hello, I came from Budapest University of Technology and Economics, especially to attend this event. So I am very happy I learned something new. So my question is, how we can get a connection with a successful entrepreneur or someone who is on a successful path? So how we can get connection to change our life, to be a successful. My second question is how the good person, successful person should teach to the new generation or to the high school people. They are not getting information from the classes to take some new initiative. So this is my question. Can you help me?
I would answer quite shortly. It's good that you're here. So this is this is a perfect format. Also, reach out and.
You are successful now. Maybe you are successful now. You made some mistake. Then you realize you should have some mentorship who should guide you, or which mistake you made in past. So please guide us. So we should avoid to get some connection.
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn is a platform where you can just add people, and if you put in a nice line on why you want to connect, I think everybody who's genuine will accept that. But I do think, for me at least, my time is super limited. Like the investments that I made, those are the only people that I have time to mentor. So it's, I think very hard also for successful people to mentor all the time. So you have to maybe also educate yourself. There are so many podcasts out there and good books. It's not always that you need this one-on-one mentorship. Like in a world of knowledge, there's everything you need out there. You don't actually need someone taking you by the hand and pushing you there. If you really want it and the spark is already there, you will also make it without a mentor, I think.
Just maybe addressing the last part of the question, just approach me after the panel. I can share so many directions where I went wrong, and I'm happy about it, going wrong, but that would actually, that would be too much for the panel. But just approach me afterwards.
Great. Thank you very much. Just looking for one last question, I think, here in the middle.
Hello, Uwe. I have a comment and a question. So being a male and also a male co-founder, so the first would be like from my perspective as a male co-founder, that I would always like encourage having like mixed teams. Like, I mean, that's so enriching and you are adding so many perspectives, and I'm talking to the males actually, you can hear that you're missing out on very, very substantial assets if you do it alone, and that relates also, like you talked about, like discussion culture and how to get the fire out of this kind of discussions, and I think having those female perspectives on that is super helpful and rewarding. And the other thing is, as a male, I was not aware of many of those issues actually before. My eyes were opened on specific topics. So, for instance, if I approach an investor, I think I'm approaching an investor as a founder, as a researcher, or whatever. I never thought of it, and I'm approaching him as a male, but that's probably true, and that's true for many other situations in the life. And so the question I would have is, like, is there something where we as males can be more aware of that, or if there are things we should ask ourselves before we start an interaction or afterwards? Are there any things we can consider?
I love this question. Thank you. No, I really, it shows the progress that we need, right? So just raising the awareness and learning together, and then also raising your voice when you see that something is just not right, or is something where you're curious about, or where you would say, well, this is something odd here. And but first of all, you need to realize that something is odd, and that is the point. And so I think we are all on a learning journey together. So I've had situations actually where I felt something is odd, and then I asked my female colleagues and asked, did you realize what just happened? And they said, yes, but I don't know. And then they found a lot of apologies why. And then I asked my male colleagues and asked, did you realize that something was odd? And they were, no, we didn't realize, thank you for raising it, because it's not okay. You need to give this feedback. It's not okay. And so what I'm trying to say, that it's a dialogue where we all need to learn together. So females need to learn to raise their voice and to address it. Males need to learn to actually see it, and we can only do it together. And coming back to the very first question in terms of purely female networks and mixed networks, this is why I also love mixed networks a lot. Want to add something?
That was a perfect closing for the offline questions, and I think we have an online question as well.
Okay, we had also some online questions, people who were interested in various aspects I think we can't pose all of those questions, but maybe also as a finishing note, the question, what has to change structurally, to your opinion, to have more female innovators, maybe also based on your experience that you have made as female founders? What has to change structurally to have more female innovators?
So I'm talking out of the corporate perspective now, so the corporate innovation perspective. I would say flexibility is a large part in terms of work flexibility, but also choosing what you do and where you can do it. And actually there's already a lot of structures available. And we need to realize that they are there and that we have the right to use it. And yeah, so I'm handing over.
I agree. And if I would have to mention three things, I would say, above all, there was a lot of societal change lately that led to female role models being more present in the public discussion. And I believe that through this awareness, many structural things like childcare, but also elderly care, and generally the obstacles that women face have been more in the focus, and people started to realize that they have to harness this potential that we're losing out on. Lisa?
Yeah, I actually think there are some pretty quick fixes, like, for example, a company is paying for the car, but it's not paying for childcare because it's, from a tax perspective, not supported. Women that are entrepreneurs or selbstständig in German, they don't get the same parental leave conditions as if you're an employee. So when are you starting a company? Somewhere end of your 20s, beginning of your 30s, when you're also starting a family. So I agree that this is actually structurally, I think, one of the biggest challenges that we can actually solve from a political perspective.
Great, thank you very much. Then I think we are finished with the questions, and actually we have a great startup, EELISA, who are doing exactly that. They offer childcare as a benefit, and it's also tax benefits for the company. So I think we have some really good developments.
What's the name of it?
EELISA. I'm just making some marketing here. Sorry?
We pay for it.
Exactly, the company is paying.
Yeah, and for Siemens is also paying for childcare.
Ah, yeah, great. So here you go. Another great example for how to support more diversity. Lisa, Laura, Isabel, thank you very much for your great input today, to be part of our panel and to give your perspective on this very important topic. And just from my side, a very short summary. Diversity is a superpower. We need male allies in order to proceed together and make innovation more diverse and inclusive. And in that sense, I would like to also have a big round of thank yous. And if you want, you can stay on stage. You can also take your seat because it's my turn now to say thank you for the organizers of this great event. And also for Professor Honaga to open the discussion today with his great speech. I would like to also say thank you for the organizers of this great event today. David Schade and Johanna Hoyer from the ELISA team at FAU, Anna-Kathrin Wenzel from the Siemens Research and Innovation Ecosystem Erlangen-Nürnberg, and Markus Hosser from the FAU Founder Café for putting this event together. Also a big applause to Siemens and the European Union's Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program to actually funding this event. And I would like to also give a big applause to our tech team, Mr. Greve and his camera team, for live streaming this event so that it could be a truly European occasion today. And last but not least, to continue this conversation, we have some exciting events coming up. As you can see on the slide, the next EELISA Innovation Talk will be on the 9th of June, and the topic will be Visible, a practical guide to establish your online presence for Horizon Europe applications. And this will be hosted in my beautiful hometown by the Technical University of Budapest. The next Femtech talk by Siemens and FAO will be on the 24th of May, and it's about being a woman leader in a man's world. Very catchy. And the next FAO Founders Cafe will be on the 20th of June about the topic Team is Key. In the name of the organizers and the whole Zollhof team, I would like to say thank you for your attention here in Nürnberg and also online. I hope you enjoyed this event as much as I did. For the online audience, I would like to say thank you, take care, and goodbye. And for all of you, I wish you happy networking and great chats and amazing snacks. Enjoy!